Welcome to Hanging with the Hoopers podcast. Enjoy our speaker spotlight.
Hey everyone, we are excited to bring Sam Trimble on the podcast. Hanging with the Hoopers, welcome. And Sam, you're a multiple time guest. You've been to our region speaking. Last Energize, you brought the heat, man. So much good. In fact, coming out of Energize, we've just been this year following up with implementing several of our company, our agents implementing Alana and some of the things that you actually talked about on stage, which is so cool to see. But man, Sam, you've been all over the country, NS3, Inman, speaking for, you just posted on LinkedIn, and I lost count flipping through the stack, but as many presentations as you've done, dude, what are you seeing? And why are you excited about Energize and what you're bringing to 2025 to kick us off?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. Andrew, wherever you are, working hard.
He is working hard.
But thanks for having me. I think there's just a lot going on. There's been a collective anxiety over the last several months to years, as a country, as an industry. And so I think, if I was an athlete post game, I'd be talking about facing adversity and how as a team we came together and all that kind of stuff. But you used a word that you use often, and I think back to energy for sales and Energize and all these things. And it's like, what is total energy? Total energy is kinetic energy plus potential energy. That equals total energy, right? So the kinetic energy, the things we're already doing, the forward motion that we have. But what is the potential energy?
Yeah,
so
come on.
To me, what I get excited about is thinking about what is the potential of what this year could be like. And forget the year. What's the potential of that first quarter? And forget that. What that first month, that first week, that first day back in the office in 2025, what is the potential of that day? And so when you combine that kinetic energy and that potential energy, you get that total energy. And I think we need a reinvigoration and to re-energize as an industry. And something that you and I have talked about a lot is we're great at a lot of things as an industry, and individual agencies and title companies across America are great at a lot of things. One of the things that we're not that great at is letting the public know what we actually do, why we matter, and why we're the bedrock of the American dream. And I often, sorry to bore you with this, but I often kind of extrapolate out what that means. And I tell people, I'm from El Paso, Texas. When I say that, most people are like, ooh. And I talk about how wonderful El Paso is. Yeah. I love El Paso. Being on the border is one of the best things about El Paso. One of the safest cities in the country. I just love it, right? That same ooh, is what we get when somebody's like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, I'm in the title business. And they're like, huh? Okay. And so rather than taking that and just being like, okay, nice to meet you, and then hovering to the next person, I think we need to say, and at minimum, we need to have in our mindset every day, especially to create that potential energy at the beginning of the year, that the title industry is the foundation of the real estate industry in the United States. Why? If there's no title insurance, a lender won't lend. If a lender won't lend, a buyer can't buy, a seller can't sell, the American dream comes to a screeching halt. What happens when that happens? What happens when the American dream comes to a screeching halt is the United States economy comes to a screeching halt. Real estate being the number one indicator of the health of the United States economy. What happens to the world when the United States economy comes to a screeching halt? The world comes to a screeching halt economically. Yeah. That said, you can extrapolate out that the title industry is the foundation of the world economy. So the couple 100,000 of us around this country that are working day in and day out to make sure that people own what they think they own, and that them and all their heirs for all time will have confident ownership in that piece of property, is the foundation of the livelihood of the world economy. And I'm proud of that, man. I'm thankful to be a part of it. I'm excited about it. And so when you start shifting your mindset in that way, we've talked before about this idea that when I was a title salesperson, oftentimes it was especially, the latter part of the year to the beginning of part of the next year, you're going to all these open houses and holiday parties and Christmas parties and white elephant gifts and all these events. And you're the person that oftentimes a realtor or a lender or somebody else saying, hey, could you sponsor this thing? Could you do this? Could you do that? And I'm glad to be a part of those things. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, obviously. But I'm glad to be a part of those things where it's allowed. But I also love the idea of moving our relationship to where we're on a level playing field together. I respect, appreciate, and enjoy working with you and your value in the transaction, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, Mr. or Mrs. Lender, Mr. or Mrs. Home Warranty Rep, Mr. or Mrs. Inspector, Mr. or Mrs. Appraiser, right? I respect and appreciate you. And I want people to expect and appreciate what we do as an industry too. And when you shift that mindset to recognizing that it absolutely is the bedrock of the industry, you kind of walk around with like just a little quiet little chip on your shoulder, not a bad one, nothing negative. You don't have to be bombastic, if I may.
Yeah.
But you can realize that there's a ton of value, and we need to do a better job of telling people what it is that we do, why it's important, and how it's the most cost-effective insurance type that you'll ever purchase in your entire life. And here's why.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of room there, and one of the ways that you do that, as I ramble on, just touching on some of the stuff we talked about before, one of the ways that you do that is let people get to know who you actually are. And who are you? You are your team. You are your people. You are your culture. The word culture, maybe we talk about it too much and it kind of becomes like, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about culture again.
Exactly.
I think of positive things when I think of culture. What do you think of when you think of the word cult?
Right. Radical following.
Wake
exclusivity.
up.
Wake up.
It feels negative, right?
Yeah.
It feels negative. Well, cult is just a shortened version of culture. And in business, I think what happens is a lot of us, people will go around and be like, oh, they're like a cult over there, talking about another business, right? They're like a cult over there across the street at that real estate company or at that title company or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, and they start looking across the street. What is it that they're actually saying? They're saying they've created a culture that I don't know if I could create that. I'm probably a little bit jealous of. And so I'm going to speak about it in a way that inherently seems kind of negative.
There you go. Yep.
And so that goes back to like, you and I have talked about this many times, this idea, there is a lot of evolutionary things in our industry and in every industry. There are very few revolutionary things, absolutely like cataclysmic changes in how we do things.
Right.
But the evolutionary things, we all know what they are. Create significantly better customer experience, make people feel seen and heard, attract the best talent and keep the best talent by creating incredible culture. All of create perfect timing for that. Thank you.
That was revolutionary.
It was. Felt that way. Create a process that's replicable, that allows you to systematize being absolutely the best at what you do, being timely, being responsive in a quick manner. All of those things, like we know those are the things that we need to do.
Yeah.
But every single one of those things takes work. Each one of them has their own set of goals and tactics and strategies to accomplish those things. And so it's not that the company down the street that's absolutely crushing it is revolutionary versus who you are. It's that company down the street is probably executing on those things that we just talked about.
Yeah.
It's a secret. It's not a secret. I mean, there's lots of little things within those pillars that you can work on. But when you realize like it's not a secret, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes total energy, both kinetic and potential, and it takes a little bit of money in some cases, you can revolutionize your business by simply picking the ways you're going to evolve in a meaningful way. And so the opportunities out there are endless. Technology has allowed us to have this army of interns working for us 24/7, 7 days,
right?
Which is really
crazy. Here's what I want to just interject. Last year, you're on stage like showing, amazing ideas of AI, and now fast forward 11 months, and it's become so mainstream. You talk about, and I use the word very carefully, but it's stupid fast. Like the way AI is literally transforming everything. I tell people this, like the ones who are still holding out. I'm like, if your teachers are figuring out how to actually allow kids to use AI, because they're going to do it anyway. They're using AI. So it's like, okay, how do we repurpose kids' bandwidth in their brain from writing all this? They need to learn reading and writing, but honestly, writing is an invention. We're actually unwinding the clock a bit where we could go back to more, everyone's like, well, we're going to lose communication. I feel like AI is actually going to give us communication skills back. Because we're actually, did you know AI is helping me when I leverage it? It actually helps fill in my gaps of communication. Like I'm like, I actually prompted that was a garbage in, garbage out. That was actually a poor prompt. I can say it better, and it's actually helping me be a better communicator. So teachers are figuring out how to leverage AI in school so our kids can be like their creativity can be unleashed, and so many things. And then the government's figuring out how to get ahead in the world. Our own government, how do we lead the world in AI? So if you have those two components, education and government, figuring it out, like this is here to stay. You got .gov and .edu figuring out AI, then .coms better get on. Like, we don't hold out. It's not going away. But it's become mainstream. And you were just on stage 11 months ago saying, like, here are some of the ways in title in your production you can be leveraging it. And now you just mentioned it, a whole team of interns at your fingertips. But here's the thing I see, so much distraction as well, because we try this, we try that, we try this, we try that, and we don't get traction with any one thing. What I see you do so well on webinars that I'm on with you, on stages that you're on, you're taking the best of what you're seeing work across 50 states, things that truly our agents, competitors hope they don't learn and do. And you're literally saying, here's what you need to go focus on and execute on to get traction. So you're, in a way, I feel like you're the AI quarterback truly in our industry. Like you always point off stage to, like, here's this guy in the room, here's this gal in the room, like, talk to this person, It's because you've demoed all the solutions, you've been on all these things. So I'm really excited for what you're going to bring. But you're right, Sam. We all want a revolution, and what it's really going to take is us looking at where do we get a little bit of traction and then stop, and how can I go evolve that into the next phase? And that will truly just it's really small steps, and you're always very, very practical. So you're going to bring some revolution to Energize because of the evolutions you're going to share. And I always want to say, like, the secret sauce, it's really not secret. Like you just said it. It's just more the discipline of what do I stick with? What do I invest my time with? Yeah. And that's where I think people long for clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to kind of wrap up that thought, I mean, the issue with AI and technology in general, for a long time, but especially right now in our industry, is I think this little bit of fear. And so we're afraid of what will go wrong. When what we should be afraid of is what will go wrong if we do nothing. Right? And so stop being afraid of what could happen and start being afraid of what will happen if you do nothing. Yeah. No one will die on the other side of the earth if you enter the wrong prompt into Gemini or ChatGPT or Jasper or whatever, right? So when you start realizing that fear, and one of my favorite things that I read relatively recently, it's a couple 100-year-old anecdote, but this idea that fear is often a mile wide but only an inch deep.
Yep.
You look at fear as if you're in front of this raging river that's a mile wide and there's no way you could get across it. Then you take that first step and you realize it's only an inch deep. And then you take that second, third, and fourth. And all of a sudden you realize, like, yeah, I may get a little wet, but I can absolutely do this. And so getting out of our own way in life and in business and in our space and in the incredible industry that we're blessed in which to work is one of the biggest keys. Like, how do I get out of my own way?
Yeah.
How can I create a scenario around myself that's replicable, that allows me to step out in faith, try new things, and surround myself with a team that when sometimes I do fall flat, they pick me right back up and we keep going. And I know it sounds a little like kind of corny and cheesy, but at the end of the day, like, the companies that do that best have an incredible culture. They enjoy working together. They're talented people that respect and appreciate each other, which then allows them to go out into the world and create absolutely best-in-class service, best-in-class product, and in-class operations. And that's, the difference between the people that crush it and those that don't. They step out in faith, they try new things, and they have a team that backs them up when they do it.
I love how you articulate that, Sam. I look at it as you have people who try so hard to be professional, and they stall out so many times, this procrastination because of perfectionism. They just, again, that prompt, I might not prompt just right, or I might not use the tool right, or what I say might not. I look at those people who are what I call authentically professional. They're not plastic. They're authentically professional. Professional in that they are in a pro sport and they know it and they own it and they take pride in that. Yeah. They are all about doing things the right way business-wise. They're full of integrity. They don't talk about people behind their back when they're not in the room. Like, people full of integrity. You know those people when you're around them. They're just good, salt-of-the-earth people. So when I look at a professional, that's what I look like. But on the same token, they're willing to try new things. They're willing to be human. they give grace, they give themselves grace, and they live in grace. So they're totally committed to quality and professionalism in their art, their craft. The law firm, the title company, like their art and craft is paramount, and they strive every day for excellence. But then they're willing to try new things, to mess up. I mean, I had somebody the other, I got their name wrong, and they looked at me and they were like, and you're a sales coach? I'm like, so I roll my eyes a little bit. I'm like, yep, I actually am. Because I know what it's like to get names wrong, and I can identify with salespeople who have that same fear and just need to charge through it. And anyway, I'll correct your name. Like it was Brian and I said Brett or something like that, or it was Brett and I said Brian. And but anyway, my brain saw the right thing, my mouth said the wrong one. But that's, you know how it is to get. And I've always had it ever since I was little. I had a little stutter problem growing up, and then I've had, like, I don't think it's dyslexia, but it's like I will literally think it here and say something, and it's like, and it bugs me. But I'm like, I've just kind of leaned into it. It's me, and I'll like self-deprecating humor all the time. But what I know is that over the long term, that's actually more. It's freeing for me, and it's more attractive to everybody you're around, because you can just be human. So I call it authentic professionalism. Because you're not trying to make it up. You are who you are, and you own it, and you just try, like, be willing to try new things. So Sam, I look at you as that, man. You've helped me raise my bar in that, because you're always, like, committed to quality. I mean, I look at your, like, social presence, everything you do, it's like, it's very quality. But I get around you, and it's like you're fiddling with something. You're trying something new. You're like, hey, check this out. I just tried this. And the reason why I think you have such a quality of work produced is because you're always in that, like, willingness to try and just be authentically you and yourself. So I love that you said that, man. The cult, if you will, to go back to that. It's usually because somebody's willing to step out in faith and try something new. And so I'm excited to bring you back to Energize, man. Give us a few, the golden nugget you said earlier, I want to go back to, and then I'm going to hand the mic to you to kind of wrap us. But you said, instead of fearing what could go wrong, you should probably fear what will happen if you don't try or don't do it, or what would go wrong if you don't try. So
yeah, we're often scared of the things that will go wrong, but what we should be scared of is the things that will go wrong if we do nothing. So action and
there it
movement
is.
You know, watching my dad go through his cancer journey that you and I've talked about many times, I've come to realize that one of the reasons he's in such incredible shape is that he's always just kept moving, right? He just kept one foot in front of the other and kept. Sometimes it's just trudging along, right? Sometimes you're running, like you got, but with that kind of just tenacity, you just kind of keep moving forward. And if you can do it with a little bit of joy and a little bit of reinvigoration, then it can bleed into your business. It will bleed into your personal life, and we'll all be in a much better place. You know, I think the only, I read this recently, Peter Thiel, I talk about him all the time. You know, the only mistake is to have not made any mistakes. Right? So stop being scared of what could go wrong. Things will definitely go wrong. Oh yeah. No doubt. Right? Yeah. But, you know, fortunately for somebody like me, I'm not smart enough to be, you know, balancing CDs every day and doing reconciliations.
You probably are, man.
It has to be dollar for dollar, penny for penny perfection. In the marketing and sales space, it's about iteration. So thank goodness I don't have to do that. But in my space, in marketing and sales and kind of tech stuff, you can, like you said, you can kind of tinker with stuff, you know, and so when you start thinking that the only mistake is to not make mistakes, that fear is only a mile wide but an inch deep, we should stop being scared of the things that could go wrong and start being scared of what absolutely will if we do nothing. You take those three thoughts, and all of a sudden you're just like, man, I just got to keep plugging forward, surround myself with awesome people. And 2025 is going to be an incredible year. So if I could leave with one thing as we wrap up here, I would say, and we talked about this a minute before we hopped on, you know, the issue with some conferences and seminars is you either get really excited or you get a lot of tactical stuff, but you don't get both. So what I try to do every single time I put a deck together is let's get excited for who we are, where we are, and this time that we're living in, and realize we're all together, and a rising tide raises all ships, right? And then let's talk about a few strategies and tactics that we can go implement right now. So if we can take that total energy, the kinetic and the potential, and plug that into some actual tactical strategies that we can implement today, that's how you start to create a seismic shift. So let's go in. to January in 2025, create a seismic shift and see what happens.
I'm amped up, man, just talking to you. Our theme is amplifying sales culture. What you said about tactical and motivational, right, and combining the two, it makes me think of that quote that says, if you want to get your people to build a ship, don't take them to a stack of lumber, take them to the ocean and help them see the glory of sailing the seas. And we're going to do both. We're going to bring a stack of lumber. We're going to give you the practical. We're going to take you to the sea and show you the glory. And I think getting our people, our team, we're talking about amplifying, getting our team, our internal team excited about what they do, knowing that you're excited and talking to the market about what they do, I think is going to insert that energy that the industry needs right now, that your title company needs right now. And Sam's going to be your AI quarterback. He's going to be bringing top stuff that your competition hopes you do not execute in 25. So, Sam, happy holidays to you, man. Merry Christmas. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Yep. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Happy holidays to everybody. I'm excited to be alongside you guys again. And let's make 2025 awesome.